Hello and welcome back to the National League Rugby Preview Show, powered by Talking Rugby Union, where every Thursday we hope to bring you all the build-up to a National League Rugby weekend. And the aim, as we said last week, was to put our clubs further in the spotlight and encourage more supporters of National League Rugby and rugby in general to get down to your local National League Rugby club on a Saturday and experience what levels 3 and 4 of English rugby are all about. And as we said last week, this is free on YouTube, so please do like the videos, hit the subscribe button and share with your friends, your families, your teammates, your members, supporters, whoever that is. It all goes a long way to boosting the profiles of National 1 and National 2. And I'm delighted to say yet again joining us this week is Ben Jaycock from the Rugby Paper, the assistant editor of the Rugby Paper, to give him his full title. Ben, thanks so much for coming back on. How much did you kind of enjoy last week's show to begin with? And of course, the opening round of National League Rugby fixtures.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for having me on again. Yeah, I've really, as I predicted, a really enjoyable opening weekend of National League Rugby. Really enjoyed the preview show last week. I thought it was some excellent interviews that you had that on there, certainly with Matt Riley from Sedgley. Really enjoyed that one in particular, having interviewed him a few times myself. Yeah, so really looking forward to the next show and looking ahead to the next round of action, but also looking a little bit in the past on how each team opened up their campaign.
Yeah, you mentioned, of course, that the Matt Riley interview that we had included in the show last week. Ben, a big thanks to Sedgley Park and Havant for their help with the preview show last week. We actually were at Sedgley Park at the weekend to see them kick off the season with a 65-24 victory against Esher, a brilliant second half performance from the Tigers, a really special way to mark the David Smith Memorial Day, with the club naming the stand after what they will describe as a very, very big club legend. So a very, very poignant day at Sedgley Park, but a memorable victory for Matt Riley's Sedgley Tigers to kick things off with. So as we mentioned there, Sedge and Havant were our featured clubs and our featured games last week. This week in round 2 of the National League Rugby Preview Show, we'll be heading into National 2 North for the Sheffield derby. Our focus is at Sheffield Tigers. They're taking on Sheffield, one of the closest, if not the closest derby across National League Rugby. And we'll be over into National 2 West to preview Redruth's game against Camborne, where we'll be speaking to Director of Rugby Nigel Hambly at Redruth to get a feeling of all the fervour that happens down in the southwest ahead of such a big game. Just as a side note as well, if you are heading to Fylde versus Preston and National 2 North this weekend, Mark Nelson at Fylde has written a piece for the matchday programme which just explains the attendances and the bumper crowds that we do get to see on derby weekend. So if you are thinking, where do I get my sporting fix this weekend, why not try and find your local National League Rugby club, because it is still the highest level of domestic rugby you can watch at the moment before the return of the small thing called the Premiership next weekend, and expect there to be large attendances and great atmospheres as well. So yeah, really looking forward to Derby week, and I'm sure Ben is looking forward to Derby week as well. But as you said at the top, Ben, let's maybe have a quick brief look back at the weekend in round 1. We'll start with National 1, and when you were kind of pulling together the Rugby Paper on Saturday night for Sunday's edition, what kind of was standing out for you across the third tier, mate?
Yeah, there's some really enthralling matches. Lots of tries scored across the division, mainly probably because of the good weather tends to be in September. I thought the London derby, Richmond demonstrated their aspirations really well to return to the second tier. Big win over Blackheath, whose home troubles continue. They seem to be much better on the road than they do at home. They're keen to address that this season. Sale FC struggled big time last year. They're involved in a bit of a survival tussle to beat the drop, which is kind of unthinkable considering how well they did the season before that, finishing third. But they look back on it with an impressive victory at Plymouth Albion, one of the hardest places to go actually, and one of the biggest travels as well. So no credit to Sale FC. Yeah, Esher suffered a bit of a 20-minute blitz, but like you said, by Sedgley, scored 65 points in total. They've been fantastic since joining the third tier last season. Esher, we're hoping to probably follow suit and replicate that model and what their opponents have done since joining National 1 and settle into the third tier after kind of yo-yoing between National 2 East and National 1. And Rotherham Titans are looking very impressive under Harvey Billion, the new director of rugby. They mean business with an excellent victory over a promotion candidate in Rosslyn Park. Max Heyman scored a hat-trick for Rams at home to Darlington Mowden Park. They look one of the standouts already in the division. They've built chemistry and cohesion nice in recent years, and they look one of the favourites to go one better under Seb Reynolds. And Bishop Stortford looked good as well. Good win for them at home. home. Obviously, what was quite an emotional day. I know we're going to touch on that a little bit later. Hooker Alex Ramont, highly respected across the league in terms of hookers, and scored 2 early tries to get the ball rolling. And then a tough start for Dings Crusaders at Birmingham Moseley. You know, they look fantastic and are building on what they did in the second half of last season. Winger Akil Smith is continuing to look sharp and scoring tries for fun. Difficult for Dings to go there first up. Their focus will probably be on their home form and picking up points away from home where they can.
Yeah, beautifully done there, Ben, to summarise National One to kick things off. Yeah, you mentioned sort of all the highlights really across the league. Certainly Rotherham's outstanding win. Director of Rugby Harvey Billion telling the club social channels on Saturday evening, a brilliant performance by their pack in particular to get over the line against Roslyn Park. John Okafor was named National One's Player of the Week by us, the media team. Another accolade for the big man in the Titans pack. So fantastic win for Rotherham, and now at 15 wins in a row, which stretches back into obviously the National 2 North winning title campaign last year, and they've not lost at Clifton Lane for 16 games, so they will be absolutely full of confidence going in to round 2 as well. As you said there, Ben. You mentioned Rams, fantastic start for new captain Max Heyman, hat-trick for him. He was brilliant last year, and he's got one of the title favourites off to a really strong start with that 41-12 win over Darlington Mowden Park. I know, Ben, you spoke in Sunday's edition of the paper to DMP boss Gary Law. Obviously would have spoken to him before Saturday's results against Rams, but after a 7th place finish last year for the North East side, what were his kind of thoughts going into sort of 24-25?
Yeah, I think he was definitely aware it was going to be a real sort of daunting start. Going away to Rams, like they said, were a title favourite, so probably too early to judge them off the back of that. You know, they still played some good rugby in that match as well. Yeah, he's still playing as he approaches 40 in January, so that's a great story. He's kind of a player coach. He played inside centre actually on Saturday rather than fly half. Yeah, look, but law aside, it's a very youthful squad. They've got one of the lowest budgets in the division, but they've got a decent catchment area, so it can pick up good talent from local sides, players that maybe just missed out on Premiership or Championship academies, and then can kind of mould them into their own setup. The top half seems the goal for them. Like you said, 7th was impressive last year considering their wage bill, and if they can get kind of 5th, 6th, I think they'll be very pleased.
Yeah, I think they're right in saying, Ben, and maybe not to show Gary's age, that he might have been in the starting team when they last played Rotherham 4 years ago in National One. I know Darlington do play Rotherham this weekend, so I'm sure he'll thank me for saying he's still pulling on the boots. But as you said, he was involved on Saturday, wasn't he? So
yeah, definitely still proving it. He's still proving it at a very good level. Yeah, no, and he's very, very proud and keeps going, and doesn't seem like any time we're going to slow down. He said that he may come to a point where he'll have to walk away, but at the moment he's enjoying it, and he knows that time will come. So making the most of what he's doing at the moment.
yeah, very good character of National League Rugby is Gary, and as we mentioned, DMP do play Rotherham this weekend. We'll come on to that in a very short while. We just wanted to finish off Ben's touch on it actually when he was summarising National One. It was quite a poignant day at Bishop Stortford on Saturday afternoon, and they won 36-12 against Leicester Lions, but we saw kind of on Thursday and Friday leading into Saturday that the game was dedicated to 415's captain Max Oliver, who suffered a cardiac arrest last week and died at the age of 31. And it really does go without saying that our thoughts on the National League Rugby preview show and from National League Rugby overall go out to Max's family, friends, everyone connected to Bishop Stortford. And I'm sure Ben will echo that. I'm sure the first 15, the lads who put in a result on Saturday, would have made Max extremely proud. So a poignant day for Bishop Stortford on Saturday, but we just thought we'd absolutely mention that because Max clearly was a very loved member of Bishop Stortford's community. Max's family have also set up a JustGiving page to support the charity Cardiac Risk in the Young. I know many National League clubs are already connected to the charity, so know the amazing work they do, and donations will only go to help to allow more young people to be screened. So if you can, please donate, and we'll put a link in the description of the video too, or you can visit Bishop Stortford's Instagram account at BSRFC, and the link is in the bio. And so let's have a look, Ben, at round 2, heading into Derby weekend in the 3rd tier. What kind of jumps out of the page for you? What are your kind of thoughts, feelings going into the weekend?
Yeah, I thought after their impressive win on the opening day, Sale FC will be looking strong. They'll be back at home against Sedgley Park, who obviously got a very good win against Esher. So that sounds like a cracker, bit of a little bit of a northern derby. But our focus in the rugby paper is another London derby. Very intrigued to see if Richmond can back up their win at Blackheath, while Rosslyn Park will be desperate to avoid back-to-back defeats to start their title pursuit effectively. Thrilling games across the board, but I would say they're the two that stand out the most to me. But with a particular focus on that London derby, that should be quite feisty.
Yeah, you quite rightly mention that London derby being one of the top fixtures, and the fixtures will come up now ahead of this weekend. Rosslyn Park Richmond does top the bill in terms of the way it's organised on National League Rugby. You know, after that 31-20 win against Blackheath, which we mentioned in the National League Rugby wrap-up, which went out on Tuesday morning, another London derby for them. And as you said, Ben, can Rosslyn Park bounce back on Saturday afternoon? We'll wait and see. Elsewhere across the league, Leicester Lions take on Birmingham Moseley. As Ben said at the top, both Moseley got off to a good start against Dean's Crusaders in round one. They actually announced on Monday that they forged a bit of a partnership with Gloucester Rugby, so it'd be interesting to see how that develops and how Adam Balding's side get on with that. But obviously their primary focus will be travelling to Leicester Lions to get a result in round two. Dean's Crusaders versus Plymouth Albion, both sides looking to get a first win of the season. Dings actually haven't lost at Shaftesbury Park for over a year. 12 straight wins for Steve Williams' side, en route to the National 2 West title last term, and were very much actually in the contest against Birmingham Moseley right up until sort of the final 10-15 minutes. Reading the reports in the rugby paper on the weekend, seemed like they were very much holding their own in National 1 on their opening game in the division. As Ben said, Sale FC versus Sedgley Park, the Manchester derby, always jumps out the page. Sale with that very good win at Plymouth last week. Esher versus Rams down in Surrey. Esher started well against Sedgley Park in round one, but kind of fell away in the second period. A very new side coming together that Peter Winterbottom's forging at the moment, so they might take a bit of time to gel, but there's certainly positive elements they can take into what will be a big game against Rams. DMP, Darlington Mowden Park against Rotherham. And finally, last but not least, Bishop Stortford taking on Blackheath. It's back-to-back home games for Tom Coleman's side at Silver Lace. So can Stortford repeat what happened last weekend and come away with 2 wins from 2 to begin the season? So that is a quick look at National 1, Ben. Over into National 2 North now, and you know we focused quite a bit, didn't we, on the teams that might be in the frame for top spot at the start of the season, but they didn't seem to be any surprises, did there, in round one, Ben, in terms of those sides really laying down the markers early doors?
Yeah, it's definitely sure. The statement of intent from Leeds Tykes on the opening day, they were on fire. Pretty comfortable victory over Tyndale when you thought that could be a potential banana skin, but no, they look focused, primed and ready for their title pursuit. And fingers crossed for in the Leeds Tykes camps, they'll be hoping that they can stay on it for the whole duration of the season and continue their title march. Sheffield continue their momentum from last year. They're looking really good under Anthony Poser, and a great win for Lim away at Howieson. That's a real statement of intent there. They're looking really strong at the beginning of the campaign. I know that Howieson's only Jersey Reds' unfortunate demise kept them in the National League, so Ionians are hoping to pick up points where they can and try and stay out of that relegation fight this year. Wharfdale looking good though, a nice win and a valuable win for Otley at Hull. And so Cam Wilkinson, I felt sorry for him, just couldn't slot the extras as Preston Grasshoppers fell just 2 points short of Chester in their return to National 2 North. And a great win for Billingham to start the campaign at home to Harrogate, trying to stay clear of the threat of relegation. We kind of earmarked that last week as a really important game, and Billingham started the campaign really strongly. Pleased with them.
Definitely really good win for Billingham to kick off the campaign. You mentioned kind of Chester there as well, Ben. There is obviously a bit of a focus on Chester this season for a couple of different reasons. Number one, they were in National 2 West last term, shifted back to National 2 North just in terms of the way the leagues are structured. So it was always going to be interesting to see how they get back on in familiar surroundings, if you like. But also there is a new man kind of in the dugout, if you like, with Reese Hayes, the former Coldie player, was at Coldie last year, I believe, playing in the Championship, but he got off to a winning start in terms of victory away at Preston, nail-biting win in the end with that 32-30 win, should I say. So I know you spoke to Reese for the rugby paper, Ben, at the weekend. 11th in National 2 West last last year, obviously coming back into National 2 North. So what were Reese's thoughts and feelings in terms of what Chester can achieve this year? Because when they were in National 2 North, they were always sort of knocking on the door of those top spots.
Yeah, absolutely. You'd probably say that that position was mainly due to the immense travel they had to go through in the West. But yeah, they've got a new man at the helm, like you mentioned, Reese Hayes. He's gone into coaching after hanging up his boots at a championship side Caldy. He brings in a great amount of experience from a really good level as well. Caldy have held their own since joining the championship a few years ago. He's going out at a top level and performing really well at fullback last season. So it was a bit of a surprise that he's actually moved on into coaching, because he can still play 15 at a very good level. They're an ambitious club. They're wanting to get back to National 1 long term. Aspirations for this season, Hayes was saying that aspirations are a top 4, maybe even top 3. We'll have to see. We'll see how that pans out. A lot of good sides in the division, but they're really looking forward to having those increased gates in the north. A lot of away fans coming up, whereas last season they tended just to have home fans at their fixtures. This time there'll be plenty of away fans, coming over to Chester, and have quite a good atmosphere, and also able to travel to their away games as well. So yeah, looking really positive, and a really nice win to start the season for Chester.
Yeah, very interesting to read your piece in the paper, Ben, and also to hear your thoughts there that Chester are thinking they might be, or want to be challenging those top 4 sides. Obviously, we didn't mention them last week, did we, when we were talking about your Leeds Sykeses, your Fields, your Wharfdales, etc. So interested to see Chester can throw themselves into the mix. And as I just said there, one of those clubs that might well be in the mix are Wharfdale. Ben said that great start to the season for them, that 22-8 victory against Sheffield Tigers. And as we said at the start, that Sheffield Tigers are one of our feature clubs this week and feature games this week on the National League Rugby preview show. It's Derby Day in the Steel City. They are taking on their very, very near neighbours in Sheffield. And both, we spoke to Director of Rugby Jack Howieson, and both he and actually head coach Adam Byron have links with Sheffield themselves. Adam guiding Sheffield back into National 2 North in 2017. But obviously they've gone down and come back up again under the guidance of Anthony Poser, whilst Jack was actually part of Adam's backroom staff during Adam's tenure at the Aberdale-based side. So we thought Jack would be a very, very good person to give us a little bit of insight into Derby Day in Sheffield. And here was our chat with him ahead of Sheffield Tigers versus Sheffield. So, as you can see, I'm now joined by Sheffield Tigers Director of Rugby, Jack Howieson. Jack, thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us this afternoon, and welcome to the National League Rugby Preview Show.
Thank you for having me. Cheers.
No problem at all, Jack. So before we get into what is a big week up and down National League Rugby in terms of Derby week, let's just have a little look back briefly on Saturday for Sheffield Tigers. I mean, away at Wharfdale was always going to be a tricky start. I think they lost just twice at home last season, and that was to Rotherham and Leeds Tykes. So despite the 22-8 defeat at the weekend, Jack, were there any sort of positives and takeaways you can take into this week building up to that Derby game against Sheffield on Saturday?
Yeah, I think so. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a tough place to go, especially first game of the season when we've only had a couple of pre-season friendlies. So it wasn't an outstanding performance from us. There's obviously said there's some good bits and there's some bits we definitely need to work on. I think the attitude shown by the lads was very good. I thought defensively we were very strong, and we dug in and worked as hard as we could. I think we created a lot of opportunities. We just didn't manage to finish those opportunities. I think probably maybe held them over the line a couple of times, a knock on over the line and being tackled just short. So maybe 3 or 4 opportunities. If we'd managed to convert those, it might be a different story.
Absolutely, Jack. Now, obviously, this is the preview show, so we're going to have a bigger look towards the weekend. As I said right at the top, so many derbies taking place across the country and National League Rugby this weekend. So, Jack, just give us a little insight of what it's like as a director of rugby, a coach of a National 2 side, when it is Derby week. I know, loads of people get asked, is it any different to a normal week? So, is it any different to a normal week for you guys?
We try to make it as the same as possible, but if I'm honest, it's a different sort of atmosphere. So, we've always had people that, like I imagine, all derbies are people who played at both clubs, and history between the clubs, and everyone does raise their game a little bit and get a little bit more excited, and we definitely do get better numbers at training for the first and second team when it's Derby week. So which is good, and we're great. We love the fact that Sheffield are in the same division. It helps both clubs financially in both games, and also it just means that there's good rugby in Sheffield throughout the city. So yes, it's it is a little bit different, but we do try and make it as normal as possible.
When we were talking off air, I was asking if there is any stories, any crossovers you can give us between Tigers and Sheffield. You are a good example of that, as is Adam, of course, in terms of the coaching staff at Sheffield Tigers. So do those kind of elements also add to an occasion like this, Jack, given obviously you were there a few years ago as skills coach, and I know Adam was in charge of Sheffield a few years back as well?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be silly to say it doesn't get mentioned or anything like that. Probably more so Adam, who was there for a long time. I went over for a couple of years after I finished playing rugby league and did a bit of coaching, actually working underneath Adam there. He was head coach when I met him. So I think it probably, with that, Adam was a million junior at Sheffield, and he's gone all the way through. Lots of his mates, lots of ex-teammates are still there. So I think he gets a lot of phone calls on the week leading up to it. And obviously they're wanting to get one over on their mate, aren't they? So it can be a bit like that.
It is, if I'm right in saying, the closest derby across the whole of National League Rugby. I think it's 2 miles, which separates the club. So with Sheffield being literally down the road, I know that phrase can be used a lot of different ways, but you are literally down the road. Does that kind of amplify the occasion within the two clubs, do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the lads will live close by as well, and a lot of the lads, especially probably more so at Sheffield, have come through the minis and juniors there as well. Especially lots of lads in the second team, and we're getting that a bit more now at Tigers as well. We're getting lots more sort of minis and juniors coming through and playing in senior rugby. So yeah, it's a good atmosphere. People live near the club. It's a good location to come and watch at the start of the season. Maybe not mid-season around Christmas, but at this stage of the year, generally the weather's quite nice. It's a really good occasion, so everyone's excited. We want to play as many derbies as we can throughout the club. Like I said before, it's good getting that sort of local rivalry. It's good for the pocket as well with the money, and it's good for exposure into the city as well. So I think, especially with Rotherham getting promoted into Nat 1, I think South Yorkshire, and obviously Doncaster in the Championship, South Yorkshire's got a lot of opportunity for people that want to play rugby union. So that's all we want.
Yeah, I was going to kind of come on to the opposition, Jack, for this weekend. But in terms of both of you, I mean, last season, of course, Sheffield finished third, and I think they were probably a surprise package to quite a few people in that who were followers of National 2 North. But obviously, you guys had a really strong season as well. I'm even right in saying it was the highest the Tigers have finished in National 2 North since promotion in 2016. So again, that must also add to sort of the trajectory of rugby in Sheffield, that both of you are taking steps forward each season.
Oh, definitely. I think in the last 3 years we've finished 9th, 8th, 7th. So if we can finish up in 6th spot again, we're progressing at the sort of pace that we want to progress. So I think that the only frustrating thing for us is that Sheffield had some massive steps forward last year. So I think if you asked our players, fans, supporters, members, they'd be happy about the 7th place finish with it being high. But the only thing that I'm happy about is that Sheffield finished higher. So it is something that's on our radar. And full respect to them, they've done a great job over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I was gonna mention kind of Sheffield's rides over the last couple of years, Jack. You know, I know both clubs had strong representation in the Yorkshire County Championship Cup final team earlier in the summer. So what have you kind of made of the last 12 months for Sheffield? Because they've got some talent across the board, haven't they? And I'm sure you're going to be wary of that planning for this week.
Yeah, I think they've had the benefit of having a really strong minis and juniors section over a number of years. So every year they get a few class players coming through that are local lads that want to stay and play for their club, which is something we're trying to replicate at Tigers, which we haven't had for a few years. So I do think they do benefit from that. I think they are coached very well by Ant Poser. I think since he's gone there, he's completely changed the way they play, and they're responding very well to it. He's also got a lot of connections, so he's made some very, very good experienced signings over the last 2 or 3 years, which have sort of combined with the local players. They've got quite a good blend of sort of youth and experience. So, yeah, hats off to them from what they've done. And obviously they've done really well to finish 3rd last year. And if I look at the competition this year, behind Leeds, I think it's anybody's. I wouldn't be surprised if they're up there at the end of it. It's interesting because I think historically Tigers have gone into these games as favourites, but I think it's probably the first time that I can remember that Sheffield are clear favourites in the game, which is something we want to change really over the next few years. I think what we've got a good squad this year. I think we've signed some more players that have proved to be very good players in the pre-season games, and I think they'll feature a lot this year. We've still got a lot of the old heads there that have done so well for us. The only thing that you can't predict in that too is what everyone else has been doing.
You just mentioned kind of the sort of blend you have in the squad there as well, Jack. Obviously, a few of the experienced heads would have experienced what it's like going into a derby week playing Sheffield, some of the new boys as well. So is it great to have that mixture of people who know what it's all about to come up against Sheffield, but also those guys who might be a bit fresh to the situation, but will be as equally as hungry to try and set the record straight with Sheffield, given kind of it's only one win in 4 National 2 North games for Sheffield Tigers against your closest rivals?
Yeah, I think that the players that have been there a long time, the Ryan Holmes, the Jamie Broadleys, the Tom Calladines, Liam Wallaces, they know what it's like to play in derby, and they know what it takes to win them. They've won enough of them. At the moment, do I think that the new players probably understand what the atmosphere will be like? Probably not, but that's what we're going to try and get across to them throughout this week, and let them know how important it is. By Thursday, finish the training, they'll definitely understand what we need and what it takes to win a derby. So yeah, the idea is we'll give them a good insight and then go into it full guns blazing.
So many thanks to Jack for his time there. You can sense the excitement is building ahead of Sheffield Tigers versus Sheffield. Tigers haven't won a home derby against their close rival since 2017, September 2017. So I think it's maybe one win in the last 5 National 2 North meetings for them. So the Tigers will want to put the record straight on Saturday afternoon. Just a little bit of heads up of what's going on at Sheffield Tigers at the weekend. There is the Twos game as well between Tigers Twos and Sheffield Twos. That's a 1 p.m. kickoff, so get down to the club. You can pay on the gate, and it's a 3 p.m. kickoff for the National 2 North clash as well. So really immerse yourself in the Derby Day feel if you are in Sheffield at the weekend. If you want to find out a bit more information, and if you do fancy maybe a pre-match lunch as well, and just to see if tickets are still available, do email dor@sheffieldtigers.co.uk for more information. Just to also mention, there will be a minute's silence on Saturday at Dormoor for a true giant of Sheffield and Yorkshire rugby. Derek Sherlock sadly passed away last Friday after losing his battle with cancer, and Derek played for both Sheffield and Sheffield Tigers, and he also went on to coach the Tigers as well. I mean, reading the tribute on Sheffield Rugby Club's website this morning, it is clear Derek will be sorely missed by all in the Sheffield rugby community, and the minute's silence before Saturday's game will sure to be a poignant moment. And our thoughts, of course, nationally would be with Derek's family, friends, and everybody connected to both Sheffield Tigers and Sheffield. So, Ben, let's just have a quick look then ahead to round 2. Of course, we've previewed a lot there about Sheffield and Sheffield Tigers' meeting at the weekend, but where are the rugby paper heading? What kind of are your thoughts going into the weekend?
Yeah, like I said, derby weekends, especially in the National 2 North, with a lot of clubs in close proximity. There's some really enthralling encounters that will create some really good atmospheres and a lot of drama, I feel. The whole derby is always a cracker, always close, despite Hull being further up the table in recent years than Ionians. That should always be a really quite feisty game. I know there's no love lost between those two sides. But just like yourself, the rugby paper's focus is in the Steel City. Sheffield have been on fire under Anthony Poser, but going to Sheffield Tigers is a test because there's no love lost there, and form seems to go out the window in these derbies.
Yeah, really interesting to hear you say sort of about around the Sheffields and their rise. I know we touched on it last week, Ben, but listening to Jack, he was also very complimentary of the way Sheffield have gone about the rise. A lot of mini and juniors have progressed through into the first team, so they've been on that journey with the club. And he was saying, look, we want these derby fixtures. It's great that both teams are in the league, and the only time that we are unhappy is when Sheffield finish above us. So there is that little bit of needle there, but it's quite clear listening to Jack, and obviously with you guys going to Sheffield on the weekend as well, Ben, that these derbies really do mean a lot to the communities, don't they?
Oh, they're huge. Obviously, you get the increased gates, which is really important. great atmosphere, but a friendly atmosphere as well. Obviously, there's no sort of drama off the pitch. It's all good nature. And yeah, increased gates, a lot of drama. Form, like I said, form goes out the window because both sides are just so up for it, and they want that bragging rights. They want to go to work. They want to see their friends and have a little banter at the expense of the other team. So it means so much, and the history of these derbies as well. They go so deep. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to the derby weekend.
Yeah, as you say, those rivalries are there. They're also friendly rivalries as well, but certainly not for the 80 minutes on the field. It'd be blood and thunder between Sheffield Tigers and Sheffield, as well as across the rest of National 2 North. So let's just have a look at those fixtures now. As Ben touched on at the start, the National 2 North chat, Lim, great win for them last weekend against Hull Ionians. Nice way for Adam Fletcher and Andy Davies' side to kick things off. That 39-27 win on the road at Hull Ionians. Are back on the road this weekend to face Reese Hayes' Chesterfield versus Preston. The Lancashire derby, one of the top derbies in the country. That's my personal opinion anyway. Full of history, full of drama. No winning 7 for Preston Grasshoppers against their local neighbours. If that's wrong, I'm sure somebody from Hoppers will let me know about it, but they'll be hoping to set the record straight at Woodlands on Saturday. Harrogate versus Wharfdale in Yorkshire. Harrogate will want to get off the mark after last week's loss to Billingham, as Ben touched on. The Hull derby, always a good fixture, very close last year, with the Eyes actually winning this corresponding fixture at Chantellans Avenue 30-25 in September 2023. So really interested to see which way this game goes. Otley versus Leeds. Otley came back from 12-0 down at half-time against Hull on the opening day to beat Hull 13-12, so confidence will be high at Cross Green, but the challenge is a big one to take on Leeds tight. And then we mentioned the Sheffield derby there. And to round things off in the North East, it's Tynedale versus Billingham. As Ben said, great start to the season for Billingham. They were fighting towards the wrong end of the table last year, but a really good platform to build on as they head to Tynedale, who lost to Leeds tight in round 1. So Ben, that's National 2 North. Over and out. Let's have a look and dive into National 2 East. A really interesting start to the season when I was sat in the car at Sedgley Park looking at a few of the results from this league in round 1. But what kind of jumps out for you?
Yes, exactly. Really exciting start to the division for every in every game. Guernsey, as expected, beat Worthing at home. That's a good win for them, especially considering they played with 14 men after only half an hour gone. Barnes showcased their attacking credentials with a dominant victory against newly promoted Oxford Harlequins, who did score 22 points, which shows that their attacking threat, scoring that many against one of the pre-season title favourites. It was a rude awakening for Colchester at Canterbury. You can see why Bury St Edmunds head coach Jacob Ford listed Canterbury as a promotion threat. That was a tough start for Colchester. They weren't helped by captain Alex Gray's early injury after only 20 minutes. He's their captain this year after signing from Bury St Edmunds. A Wales Sevens player, so a real key part of the engine room for Colchester. Tonbridge Juddians in our picture game beat Dorking, seemingly quite comfortable, illustrating their early season title efforts. Dorking will be disappointed to have come up short in that game. They'll be looking to bounce back this weekend and haven't roared back after 15 years out the National League. Harry Carr was excellent for the newly promoted side. Work to be done for Adam Bowman's Sevenoaks on the other hand. Henley Hawks just edged Old Albanian, valuable away win for a promotion contender at a very, very difficult place to go. Great to see Alex Newt back at Old Albanian in the tries after suffering from a torrid time injury-wise at Blackheath. He's one to watch out for this season, certainly for OAs. And a poor start for Bury St Edmunds and a great win for Westcombe Park at home. Westcombe Park looked pretty comfortable at this level, starting their second season in National 2 East.
Let's just stick with Westcombe Park and Bury St Edmunds. Ben, yeah, as you quite rightly mentioned, I think they finished 9th last year, Westcombe Park. They've got some real talent within the squad. I know Rafa Dutter, I think, again, correct me if I'm wrong, people who are watching, I think he captained Kent in the county championship earlier in the summer. So he's a real leader. They've got some really good talent around them as well. Scored some decent tries at the weekend as well. It was certainly a standout result to see them beat Bury St Edmunds. I think purely because listening to what you said last week, Ben, about Jack Heald of Barnes, saying Bury could well be in the mix with Barnes, your TJs, your Dorkings. To see them lose on the opening day of the season might have been a bit of a surprise. And I was having a look at sort of the comparison between the squad that played Bury St Edmunds last season the squad that played Westcombe Park last season to the one that played them on the opening day, and 7 of the 20 players were involved in both games. So despite sort of the new faces or the influx of new signings that Bury St Edmunds have made, there is still a little bit of familiarity there. And I know you spoke to Director Rugby Jacob Ford for the rugby paper just gone, Ben. So what did he kind of have to say? Did he touch on at all sort of the fresh new impetus around the club and the fresh new signings that are there?
Yes, yeah, he's very very excited about the new season. Obviously, the quick fix is to fix their losing run. They had he was very open and honest and saying it was completely unacceptable their second half of the season collapse. Well, because going into Christmas they were in National 2 East title race with Esher, Dorking, Barnes. So to come up short and by quite some way in the end was very disappointing. Like you said, they've signed a lot of new players. It's a virtually a new backline, and quite a few members of the forward pack have come in. Jacob's actually left his role at Ipswich School to focus solely on Bury St Edmunds. He's moved to the area as well. He's moved to right slap bang in the town centre, so he's hoping to get in amongst it and really kind of focus all his attention on Bury and I'm sure he'll be hoping to finally lead them up to National 1. And they've just it's funny what you mentioned about Gloucester having a partnership with the National 1 club. Well, Championship side Doncaster Knights now have utilised a partnership with Bury St Edmunds, so they've sent quite a lot of players over to Bury. So that kind of Championship experience should really help them certainly this season.
Yeah, there's a very good point you make there, Ben. I mean, some people may be trying to figure out why Doncaster and Bury St Edmunds have that relationship. But as you know, obviously, Jacob's brother Joe is in charge of Doncaster Knights, and I know they had a bit of a pre-season friendly as well. So be very interested to see if Bury can benefit from that relationship with the Championship side. And I've got to credit as well Russell Claydon, the journalist of the Bury Free Press, who reported, I think it was 23 new signings in total for Bury St Edmunds. So it is going to take a little bit of time for those new boys to settle on. But as you said, I'm sure Jacob will be looking for an immediate response from his side this weekend in round 2. You mentioned as well, just quickly, Tunbridge Judians at the top against Dorking. A fantastic performance by Jordan Turner-Hall and Seb Sherwood's men at Tunbridge Judian's new signing, Curtis Barnes from Worthing. I know you'll know him from Worthing. A lot of followers of National League Rugby will know him from Worthing, Ben. And he got off to a flying start. And seamlessly, considering we are talking about Tunbridge Judians, let's have a look at the fixtures for round 2 in National 2 East. Tunbridge Judians away at Colchester. Ben, just wanted to get a little bit more from you on Colchester. You mentioned the tough start that they had in round 1 after that pretty disappointing defeat, 53-13 by Canterbury. So I'm sure, though, the troops at Colchester will be banged up for Saturday, the first home game at this level in their 100-year history. So they'll be looking for a response, won't they?
Yes, but it doesn't get any easier, does it? Tunbridge Judians at home is quite a daunting task, especially if, like I mentioned, if Alex Gray is out for that game, then they might be up against it. They've signed a lot of new players. That will take a lot of time to bed in, but they need to pick up wins fast. I'm sure it'll be a fantastic day down at Colchester. Like I said, the first game in 100 years. That's going to be a hell of an occasion. They're expecting. I saw Haven got a really good crowd this week. About 850 people were there. Colchester will be hoping for a similar amount. I know they're really well supported. The city is really excited about them playing National League Rugby. They've got lunches sold out well in advance. I'm from the area. Friends of mine can't get tickets for their lunches and things. They're trying to get onto tables anywhere they can because it's just so popular at the minute. Which is fantastic to see. I'm sure it'll be an amazing occasion, but another very difficult game, and the Craig Burrows side will have to be very on it if they're going to challenge TJs on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely, Ben. And just looking at the other fixtures, Dorking versus Barnes also jumps out of the page. They are two sides that were fighting towards the top of the table last season. We mentioned on last week's preview show that they're always tight affairs. Expect nothing different when Dorking and Barnes meet this Saturday. Barnes getting off to a good start to the season with that win over Oxford Harlequins at 47-22 victory for Jack Keel's side. Guernsey take on Westcombe Park back at Foots Lane after their victory over Worthing last week. Henley versus Bury St Edmunds. We've touched on Bury St Edmunds. Henley looking to build on a narrow win over Old Albanian. Oxford Harlequins' first home game in National 2 East sees them host Old Albanian. As Ben said at the start, they managed to score, I think, 3 tries against Barnes, so that will be definitely positives for the newly promoted side to take into their first home outing of the season. Sevenoaks versus Canterbury is a nice little Kent derby in round 2. Canterbury, that lightning start to the campaign with that victory over Colchester. Sevenoaks won this corresponding fixture 23-22 last season. So can Adam Bowman's side get off the mark at home in round 2? And to wrap things up, Worthing versus Havant, the only newly promoted club, should I say, to pick up a win in round 1 in National 2 East. So those are the fixtures for National 2 East. Ben, I almost forgot, where are the rugby paper in terms of National 2 East this weekend? We focused on Colchester, Tunbridge, Julians at the start, but where are the rugby paper this weekend in terms of National 2 East?
Yes, yeah, no surprise. It will be Dorking against Barnes will be our main focus. Two sides tipped for the promotion battle. They've had some epic encounters in recent years, like you said. So very excited to see how that one turns out and how Dorking respond on their own patch after that disappointing opening day loss.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see how Dorking get on. 2 very tough fixtures for Armand Rouge's side to begin the season, as we mentioned before, Tunbridge Julians away, and then obviously to take on Barnes, who they've had some really, really tight battles against over the last couple of seasons. So expect the same again in the Rugby Papers feature game on Saturday afternoon. So let's dive in finally, Ben, to National 2 West. We said last week this is going to be a really intriguing league for various different reasons. One of those was the battle towards the top of the table. And I think we got probably more questions than answers after Saturday in round 1. So many different results, so many different narratives. What kind of jumped out to you? What kind of stood out to you, if you're able to summarise it at all?
Well, I feel like I owe the teams an apology because I said that Cinderford and Taunton
I think
Tigers,
we both did.
yeah, you can't look past them in terms of promotion candidates. Well, they both lost on the opening day, so it shows you can afford to look past those two, definitely. The Rugby Papers feature game was Exeter University against Clifton, 15-all draw, with Clifton producing a brilliant second performance in the second half to kind of stun the students, and a real sort of game of two halves. Exeter had the first, Clifton the second. A really enthralling contest there. Taunton Titans, like I mentioned, came unstuck completely in the 4th tier. Ollie Devoto started the match. Their big signing of former England international, but Loughborough students look very strong. I mean, if they can take their National 2 side as seriously as possible, I know they're juggling it with their Bucks Super Rugby priorities, but they could be real dark horses this term, I think, especially with how fast paced their pitch is and how expansive their backs are, and how sort of their youthful energy that they provide. Dean Wills scored a last gasp penalty for Redruth against Hornets. That was a good win for them. Devonport Services were given a tough introduction to life. Similar to Colchester at National 2 level, away at Bourneville, who've got a really great forward pack. Particularly a really strong scrum. I know they've received a lot of plaudits across the division last season for how well they coped in the set piece, and they've got Nathan Dukama, who's just so deadly out wide and seems to score tries for fun. That's quite a nice mix they've got going on there at Bourneville, and I think they'll be one to watch out for this season. Potentially sort of a mid-table, maybe even top half team. And Camborne gave Macclesfield a bit of a rude awakening after a very, very long travel down to the southwest for Mac. But Camborne were comfortable winners there. Luctonian started well with an away win against a very tricky Hinckley side at home. Luctonians, I know they were playing down their kind of title aspirations, but that's a fantastic start to the season. There's only one place better than where they finished last season. That would be top. So I think they'll be in the mix. And Old Red Cliffians, I've got a lot of supporters from across the league. They finished the season brilliantly last year, and they're carrying on that form and looked really good, beating that relegated Cinderford, who I tipped. So I'll hold my hands up and say I was wrong across the board, but that kind of shows how brilliant the league is now, unpredictable it actually is National 2 West. Yeah,
you can't take sole responsibility, Ben. I think I was in the same boat as you. So I think if some clubs want to point the finger, they can point it at both of us when it comes to Taunton and Cinderford. But yeah, you quite rightly highlighted those two sides, Ben. Obviously Taunton sounded like it was a very frustrating afternoon for them in the Midlands, but take nothing away, as you said, from the result and the performance from Loughborough. Martin Webdale, we were swapping a couple of messages to head coach of Loughborough on Saturday, and he said it was such a pleasing start to the season and it was a fantastic result, really standout result. And then Old Red Cliffians beating Cinderford, the Old Reds machine just keeps marching on. They picked up from where they left off last season. I think it's 11 straight wins at home for them, so they could well be in the mix, as we discussed it last week, Ben. for top spot in National 2 West. And right at the top of your little summary there, you did mention the Rugby Papers feature game of last week, which was Exeter University versus Clifton. It sounded like, Ben, that they showed a lot of character to get a result, Clifton, against Exeter University to start off with a 15-15 draw. And I know you spoke to head coach Luke Cosens, didn't you, for the Rugby Paper in the lead up to that game. So what were kind of his thoughts on the season? Clifton, I think, have finished third in the last two, if not the last three seasons in National 2 West and, of course, National 2 South. So what kind of heat did he have to say on the outlook for 2024-25?
Yeah, so Luke's only entered the role, and this is only the start of his second season. Obviously, had Mike Barber as director of rugby before. He's another player coach, so it's exciting to see him out in the field. He brings a lot of experience. He's played for Rouen and Bath, so he's played at the top level. Certainly been around those squads. But he's someone who played a lot last season, but someone who might see less game time this year after Ollie Milner from Exeter University and Tom Quinlan from Loughborough University at fly half have joined in. He's glad so he can now kind of step aside away from the playing duties and continue his coaching. But he wouldn't be surprised if a couple of injuries or he's thrown back in the fray and he's spraying passes and kicking goals from 10. They seem like they're more focused on building a really expansive style of play, which is quite encouraging. I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops to really sort of go at teams. They're not really focusing on their league position, which, you know, really into that what you will. You'd expect them from finishing third, like you said, in the last three seasons. You expect them to really push on and go for the title. Maybe they're just playing that down, but they're trying to develop a new style of play at Clifton, which would be really exciting. And it seems like across the national leagues, that's the trend at the moment. And they're going away from the old kind of traditional driving maul and set piece dominance, where that you want to, at the moment, teams are kind of preferring to play more of an expansive game and utilize their sort of youthful backlines.
Yeah, so yeah, you're right. It'd be interesting to see. It's very interesting actually reading the piece with Luke Ben to see what his thoughts are on this season. Quite a few teams aren't really talking about April. They're not talking about whether they'll be, you know, challenging for top spot. They're very keeping the cards closer to your chest, if you like, and sort of focusing on the here and now. It's very early to start saying who's going to be title favourites internally. I think a lot of clubs do wait to maybe the end of October, maybe at Christmas time, and then the picture starts to form of where their goals might lie for the rest of the campaign. But yeah, interesting start for Clifton, that draw away at Exeter University. And he mentioned one of the other results in there that I wanted to touch on, Ben, which was Camborne's results against Macclesfield, a 52-25 victory for Camborne against a newly promoted side. It sounded like Mac were very much in the game. I think they were ahead actually at half time after setting off, I think, at 5 a.m. in the morning from Cheshire to head down to Camborne. So that to be leading at half time was a really interesting thing and would have been a real bonus for Macclesfield. They did actually pick up a bonus point in terms of a try bonus point, so definitely something for them to take into their opening game at home this weekend. But one of the standout things from a Camborne perspective was their number 8, Aidan Brassington, scoring a hat-trick. He returned from injury. I think he was injured towards the end of last year in November. It's his first game since last November. And to come away with a hat-trick and help your side win is a perfect way to return. So really positive stuff for Camborne to take into their round 2 game, which is against Redruth. Such a big derby, one of the most historical derbies in National League, would be Camborne taking the very, very short trip to the Recreation ground to take on Redruth on Saturday afternoon. And we spoke to the feature club this week, which is Redruth, and we chatted to Director of Rugby Nigel Hambly to give us a little bit of insight into why this derby is so special for people down in the southwest. And as you can see, I am now joined by Redruth Director of Rugby, Nigel Hambly, on the National League Rugby Preview Show. Nigel, thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Hello, Chris. Always a pleasure, mate.
Brilliant. So before we get into what obviously, Nigel, is such a big week for Redruth and the Southwest region as a whole when it comes to rugby, let's just have a little look back briefly at Saturday's, what I'm going to describe as a bit of a tense and nail-biting win over Hornets, 29-27 win for you guys, with young fly half Dean Wills stepping up to kick the winning points. I mean, what was your overall reflections from that game now the dust settled a little bit, and what can you take from that into Saturday?
Obviously, we're delighted to get the win. I think when the fixtures come out, when you get an away fixture, I'm always it is always a double-edged sword, isn't it? it's a little less pressure on you if you're away, because I wouldn't say not expected to win, but anything you get away from home is a bonus in this league. But then if you do get a win, it sets you up. So to come away from 5 points from Hornets was a tough place to go. They play an artificial pitch, which is always interesting. Always makes it a bit more difficult for sides that don't play them all the time. And they're a side that likes to fling it around and play some rugby. And they were pretty consistent last year at home, scored a lot of points. So to come away with a 5 point win, and especially to get over the line in a close one, is always nice. But it's there's a few things to work on, but more positives than negatives, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm sure one of the positives, Nigel, not only going to Hornets, which, as you quite rightly say, is such a difficult place to go. They've got a great home record over the last couple of years. But another positive was kind of your fly half Dean Wills, which I mentioned at the top of the chart. Obviously played a lot in the second team last year. I think he scored over 300 points, which might have been the fourth highest across English rugby, according to England Rugby's website. But he obviously missed a kick 2 minutes before, but we were just speaking off air that he kind of regathered himself, showed his composure, and managed to get the 5 points for you. Yeah,
Dean's one of our many junior kids that's come through. I think he started playing rugby at Redruth when he was 5 or 6, playing touch with the mini juniors, and he's come all up through the ranks. His brother Lewis is heavily involved. He plays in the seconds. His family are heavily involved in the club as well. So to have Dean, he made his debut not last season before, at the back end of it, and it didn't go great for him, if he's honest. Probably, it was a bit of a needs must. Probably wasn't ready for National League Rugby, but he played because we were a bit short at the time, and he didn't. I don't think he really enjoyed it. But fair goes, last year he played a whole season in seconds. Killed it. We could have probably pushed him in the first team end of last season, but we thought we'd give it a chance. And also, I think he played for them to 20s last year, and they can't. If you play National League Rugby, you can't play for the 20s. So he, this year he's trained superbly in pre-season, and to miss one, then step up and Ed, our captain, asked, "What should we do? Kick for the corner or do you want another shot?" He, flatly refused to kick for the corner and took another shot, and good on him to slot it over, and shows that the kid's doing the right things. He's progressing in the right way, and we're lucky. We've got a lot of really good youngsters coming through. It's just going to take some time, Chris, for these guys to bed in, and it's a pretty brutal level for these guys to try and gain some experience. But it is what it is, and hopefully we keep them going, and we keep producing them. And those youngsters, those local lads, those local boys like Dean will thoroughly know what this week's all about, won't they, Nigel, in terms of the rivalry with Camborne. Earlier on in the show, we spoke to Sheffield Tigers Director of Rugby, Jack Howieson, and we asked him can you treat this week normally, or is it different to any other week? But I'm guessing with the history, the popularity around the fixture between Redruth and Camborne, it has to be a special week. It's not like a normal week, is it, Nigel? No, yes and no. We try to make it as normal as possible, and I think that it's harder. It was harder last week to make it normal, if you like, because obviously people, this is the big fixture, so everyone's next week, and I was always keen to say I didn't realise there was more points on this week than there was last week. So as far if I'm to put my coach's hat on and say no, it's just 5 points, it's just a normal game. But obviously there's lots of rivalry. And I think with both teams, there's lots of players that play together, played against each other for lots of lots of people work together. A lot of socialising goes on, and we see each other out anyway. So I think that's what makes it so special, and that's what makes it so interesting with the fixture. So it's definitely a massive game for not just the clubs, but just our communities. The towns come together and support their sides, and again, and business head on is a great financial opportunity for us. So that's as key to us as anything. Yes, we want to go and do well, but also want to make sure the day is run properly, and it's a very profitable day for us.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that a little bit later on, Nigel, but as you bring it up now, obviously, you know, it's great for the community. This game, it is one of the standout fixtures, not only in National 2 West, but across National Rugby from September to April. But what kind of goes into a derby week in terms of the occasion itself, Nigel, if you're able to give us a little bit of an insight to that? Because as you say, financially, the game is massive, especially when you're at home like this weekend. So I guess there's so many different elements to not only producing an 80-minute performance, which the spectators enjoy, but also producing a day which everybody enjoys and goes, I'll be definitely coming back to Redruth next week or the week after.
Yeah, I think you know, we're lucky. We got a great committee off the field. We got, you know, people who run Teresa, who does all our bar stuff, and she runs all our events. Is excellent. She's superb, and you know, we've been planning this for months. If I'm honest, this has been, you know, probably 2 or 3 months in the making. So you know, if anything, the rugby's the easy bit. It's everything else that goes around it, Chris, that makes it difficult. Makes sure that we've got some marquees going up on the top bank, and it is just to maximise everything we can get out of the game. We can get as many people in there as we can. You know, get them drinking beer and enjoying themselves. Looks like for a change, the weather's set pretty good. The forecast looks good for Saturday, so hopefully that stays the same, and we can get a bumper crowd in there. And you know, the club, and as much as making money, it's what the club to, like you said, highlight itself and how well it's run, and what a good match day experience it is. And you know, people are pretty parochial down here, and they'll be we stand opposite ends of the ground. You know, Camborne will be up the far end, the scoreboard end, if you like, and all the Redruth supporters are down the hell far end, and the in-betweeners will stand on the opposite side of the stand. So it's pretty parochial for the 80 minutes, but like afterwards is always pretty jovial, and it's quite nice. A good occasion to end up seeing people you haven't seen for a long time. People you haven't seen, you get to have a chat with them, and you know, hopefully they're doing well, and you can have a beer with them and enjoy the day. And yeah, just enjoy the day as much as you can. But also, then again, once that finishes, you're looking forward to next week.
Yeah, and you mentioned before, kind of, you know, you are kind of embedded together in the community, Redruth and Camborne. So when does the socialising or the messages stop between rival friends or anything like that, Nigel? During a week like this, you mentioned obviously it's the fans are separated on an 80 minutes, but it's the kind of WhatsApp messages, text messages stop at a certain point going into Saturday.
Yeah, they don't really stop like that. I work with one of the Camborne coaches, so I see.
How much the chat's been around the game this week, Nigel?
I think other people tend to chat more. I tend to stay out of it now. I used to be right in the middle of it, but now I tend to. I think I'm older and a bit more boring and a bit more just stay out of things. Let them do that. I'm very much like, one of my mantras is, we'll keep our side of the street clean, and you worry about your side of the thing. But there's always good banter, and I think it's been a bit, and I know this sometimes is quite controversial with when I say this, but I think it's been a breath of fresh air with Camborne coming into the league, especially for us, because it's reignited the love for rugby in our mining area, like, you know, and for years, Redruth have been on top, and you know, it's never really even been close, if I'm honest. So for Camborne to do this, good on them, good on the people that are running their club. Good on Tony. I know Tony pretty well. The guys for CLX, Tony Chapman and his brother Darren. They're putting a lot of time and effort and some money into the club, and good on them. The only time generally, I mean this, the only time I want Camborne to lose is when Redruth play them. So I want Camborne to do well, because again, it makes for our area to be successful, and people talk about it. It gets in the news, doesn't it? And that's can only be good for both clubs, and good for our area, good for our communities. Lots of things going in the RFU. I think the RFU should look at places like this, where and what sets the example of how important local rugby is. Not just, I say, not just the rugby, but just to our communities.
It's interesting, you know, Mark Nelson at Fylde sent us a few stats for ahead of Fylde versus Preston, the big derby, one of the big derbies in National 2 North, and he mentioned the attendances, and, you know, it kind of links to your point there that last season in both of the games between Redruth and Camborne, home and away, I think it was over 5,500 people turned up combined. And I think that probably echoes your point that clubs like Redruth and Camborne put on events like this, and hopefully by what we're doing on the preview show, it shines a little bit more light on these National League rugby clubs who put on operations and drive and attract so many supporters to games like these ones.
Exactly, Chris, and that's the whole point of it, you know. And it's pretty frustrating. Obviously, I've done this for a long time. It's pretty frustrating. We just always seem to get overlooked. You know, it's just it doesn't really matter. You know, they're not professional, but you don't have to be professional to be successful. You just have to run your club properly and hopefully get some support. You know, it is what it is. I don't really like to moan and bitch about it. I just think this is a good time to highlight what a good product we sell every week, and not just Redruth and Camborne, but the whole National Leagues. All the National Leagues clubs are well run. You mentioned Mark Nelson's name. I'm involved with the NCA. I'm on the exec committee of that, and Mark's been on a few of the Zoom calls, and I always really enjoyed listening to him. I think he's a switched on guy. He's got some really valid points, and and as far as I'm concerned, he gets it. He gets it.
Yeah, couldn't agree more with you on that, Nigel. And hopefully Derby weekend is a prime example of what's all good around National League rugby. Nigel, just a couple more from me, just bringing it back to Saturday's game. You mentioned kind of Camborne being back in the National Leagues, obviously in it last year, finished sixth, got off to a decent start last weekend against Macclesfield. So what are you kind of expecting from them on Saturday afternoon, or with it being a derby game, is it very difficult that you can't judge form or stats go out the window, the old cliches?
Yeah, and I think probably being the second game in the season, a lot of that goes out the window. So most sides are still not struggling, but searching for some form and searching for some continuity. And that was one thing we lacked a little bit on Saturday when we played well. We looked really good, but then we fell at a few mistakes. And I looked at I watched the Camborne game, and they're the same. When you put things together, you look all right. But just a little bit of early season, I wouldn't say rustiness, but just trying to perhaps over trying. I think probably the side that, and it's easy to say talking about it, that doesn't let the occasion get to them will be the side that settles better and probably wins in the end. But yeah, so long as this is honest review, as long as the day goes really well for the club and we put in a performance, these games are normally won on there'll be 2 or 3 really key points in the game. It'll come down to officiating as well. So sometimes you get the brother green, sometimes you go. Sometimes you get the ball over the line, and sometimes you're a yard short. So the margins for victory and defeat will be pretty close on Saturday, I would have thought. But like I say, Camborne got some quality players who used to playing on the bigger stage. So you'd think perhaps they're the boys that would settle in better. But I know our lads pretty well, and they'll be really, really looking forward to the Saturday, and they want to go out and, like I say, play for our shirt and play for our community, and hopefully put on a really good show and show the Redruth supporters how much it means to play for Redruth again.
So many thanks to Nigel Hambly for his time. We could have chatted for hours and hours about National League Rugby and National 2 Western and Derby Days. Always great value to speak to, and he's obviously preparing his side for such a big game this weekend against Camborne. Just in case if you are thinking about heading down to the recreation ground, first of all, expected to be very busy. I believe over 2,800 people were at this game last year, the corresponding fixture last year. And as we mentioned in the chat with Nigel, 5,500 people in total attended, or over 5,500 people in total attended both fixtures last year. So it will be busy. But if you are thinking about going, head down there early. Under 18s go for free on Saturday afternoon. It's live music as well after the game, so you can make a full day of it. I know me and Ben chatted last week of going down to these rugby clubs, not only for the 80 minutes, for a full day's entertainment. Redruth certainly offering that on Saturday. The gates open at 12. More importantly, the bar opens at 12. So get yourself down for a 2:30 kickoff on Saturday afternoon. So Ben, National 2 West, full of intriguing fixtures again. Where the rugby paper looking at this weekend, and what kind of stands out for you guys?
Yeah, like each division, there's some great games across the board. I think I'm torn between two at the moment. With obviously Redruth taking on Camborne in that fierce Cornwall derby, but also Cinderford against Luctonians. You know, different styles of play, but both sides gunning for promotion. With Cinderford relegated and Luctonians finishing runners up. I think that could be a really exciting game. I mean, if Cinderford start with back-to-back defeats, that would be a real kind of horror show. You know, they want to get off to a good start, get that win, and then build momentum from there. But then are they going to get it against Luctonians who are on fire, who've won so many games, you know, at this level in the last season or so? It'll be very difficult to call that one. So yeah, it's very difficult, very difficult to pick one game, and there's other great games as well.
Yeah, I think that just goes to show how exciting National 2 West is going to be this year. Obviously, all the other leagues are going to be really interesting. They always are, but I don't know why there's a feeling around National 2 West that there is so many big games and big narratives to be written between September and April. Let's just have a look at those fixtures then, and Ben quite rightly touches on Cinderford versus Luctonians. It's at the top of the running order for us in terms of the fixtures. Cinderford looking to bounce back. Luctonians coming through a very tough assignment last week against Hinckley, but it's really testing the credentials as well, Luctonians. I know Ben said that Ryan Watkins and the guys at Luctonians weren't talking about the title race or winning the league this year, but if they come through Saturday's game against Cinderford, they've got Clifton at home next week. Coming through those three games, I think will be and with victories will be a really big statement of intent from Luctonian. So interested to see how they get on in Gloucestershire on Saturday. There's a Bristol derby to get your teeth stuck into, Clifton versus Old Red Cliffians, the first one of the campaign. Clifton unbeaten in the last 7 home games, a run that stretches back into last season, of course. Old Reds, I don't think have actually lost a game since March, so something's got to give at Station Road on Saturday afternoon. Devonport Services versus Exeter University. Ben said, obviously, Devonport involved in a good game against Bourneville last weekend. They scored an absolute cracking try as well, picking up a bonus point in the process. They welcome Exeter University on Saturday. Loughborough versus Hinckley is your offering in the Midlands. The students aiming to build on a brilliant win against Taunton. Macclesfield versus Bourneville. We mentioned Mac against Camborne last weekend. Did really well up until just after half-time and kind of fell away, but a bonus point in the bag and an opportunity to get off the mark at Priory Park against a very expansive Bourneville side this Saturday. Redruth versus Camborne, we've obviously focused on with Redruth being our featured game and our featured club this week, and Taunton will be looking to bounce back after that opening day loss at Loughborough when they welcome Hornets to Veritas Park. So that is all the fixtures in National 2 West wrapped up, Ben, and that is seemingly all the main talking points from round 1 and looking ahead to round 2 also focused on. So if you do like these videos, you did enjoy last week's show, I was saying to Ben off air, we had some really nice feedback actually from the opening episode. So if you do continue to like these videos, do hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and as I said at the top, please share with whoever you like, because it all goes to boosting the profiles of National 1 and National 2 rugby. And I've actually forgot to mention, I might have mentioned at the start, but my memory's gone blank. It is still the highest level of domestic rugby you can watch at the moment before the Premiership starts next weekend. So do try and get down to your local National League Rugby club this weekend. There isn't a better weekend than Derby weekend to do so. So if you do fancy a bit of a sporting fix, get down to a National 1 or National 2 club. Of course, check out Talking Rugby Union and National League Rugby's website for all the latest news around the 3rd and 4th tier of English rugby. And of course, grab yourself a copy of the rugby paper on Sunday morning or subscribe online. And I'm sure Ben is able to tell us the details if I'm not going to put him on the spot.
Yes, the rugbypaper.co.uk/subscriptions for to get full access every single Sunday to the paper. Check out our website, therugbypaper.co.uk, and then also follow the Rugby Paper at the Rugby Paper on X.
Brilliant. And obviously Ben is too humble to say it, but also follow Ben at Ben_Jaycock on X as well, with all the latest National League musing, all those feature interviews that he does for the paper, which we talked about on the show. I don't know if Ben, it might be too early in the week for Ben to say it. Are you able to tell us who you might be speaking to for Sunday's edition, Ben, or is that going to be a bit too early?
Slightly early so far. A lot to digest, and yeah, have a good think of what particular angle I'd like to go. But yeah, some new stories breaking across all clubs, so it'd be great to get everyone's take across the season.
Well, that's even more of an excuse to go and subscribe to the Rugby Paper and follow Ben on social media to find out exactly which 4 clubs he'll be speaking to or which clubs he'll be speaking to for Sunday's edition of the paper. Well, Ben, thanks so much again for giving us your time on this Tuesday when we record the show. Really appreciate it. And we're looking forward to another jam-packed weekend of National League Rugby. It is Derby weekend for many, many clubs across the leagues, and we're absolutely looking forward for these rivalries to be renewed. So Ben, thanks so much for joining us, and let's hope for another great weekend.